Hello and welcome to the Call Center Excellence video series. This video is all about dispatch. My name is Lucas McAlpin and I am one of your customer experience coaches here at Nexstar Network. My contact information as well as that of my colleague is going to be listed at the end of this video. So let's go ahead and get started. Dispatch is not a dirty word. Dispatch is the position in all of our companies that gets to decide if we succeed or if we fail. It's the part of our business that's vital enough to affect every other position, and it should be treated as being one of the most important positions in the building. Now, dispatchers also need to recognize their own importance in a humble way. Other employees need to recognize the dispatcher's role in the success of the team and their own personal success. In other videos and in the call center class, we determined that the CSR's main job is to book the call. They should be trained to book every call, period. I want you to think of the CSR's goal as being to fill a bucket of calls with as many other calls as they possibly can, so much so that it's overflowing. And after the CSRs have filled that bucket, the dispatcher's goal is to pick and choose the right calls out of that bucket, assign them to the best technician possible, and help solve the customer's problem. Now, in doing so, details are extremely important. We need to make sure that we do everything possible to increase the likelihood of a successful interaction between the tech and the customer. And that starts with the CSR gathering all of the relevant information, and it continues to the dispatcher using that information to do their job. One of the most important of these details is age of equipment. And everything we do and everything we service in our businesses has a designed lifespan. Depending upon where you live, that lifespan could be very different. For example, an air conditioner or a water heater in Florida may have a different life expectancy in number of years as compared to the same unit in Omaha, Nebraska, based on the hardness of the water or the wear and tear that it takes from the weather. And some parts of the countries have really hard water, others have really salty from the ocean, wind, rain, snow, all kinds of different elements that can cause those life cycles to be affected. So we need to make sure that we gather that information up front and then report it to the dispatcher, who then relays it to the techs when sending them to their next customer. Using the age of equipment information that you gather can help in prioritizing the calls, and there are a few other factors that play into the categorization of each call you receive as well. There are a few examples of call priority grids on the screen right now. And you're welcome to take a screenshot or take a picture or email Tracy or Lucas at the end of this video, and we'll get a sample over to you. Now, having tools like this in place can lead to a lot of really cool things happening. It can also, though, evolve into more complicated versions of these lists. Now, there are some lists out there that dispatchers and CSRs can team up on, and they determine exactly how many of each level that they need, how many calls in level 1 versus level 3 for each day in order to maximize their revenue. They team up to specify what type of call they're actually looking for, and if a level 3 call comes in, we can't book it for today because we're full, or we need a level 1 call and we can book that out 3 days, and they have those types of conversations instead of getting desperate and taking everything that comes in for today. So I do want to caution you, though, before you just simply copy and paste all of these priority lists, please make sure that you know that it's specific to your company, that it has specific ties into your company and applies to your group. Now, in addition to having that call matrix or the call priority list, it's important that you have a tech batting order as well, or a tech ranking. And similar to the baseball lineup card on the screen now, you're going to want to make that for your technicians. And it's meant to show at a glance who the best techs are in various situations. It could be an overall tech score, or it could be in specific situations like elderly or people with dogs, or age of equipment or types of equipment, faucet repairs versus toilets, and on and on and on. And you can go really deep into this to determine which tech is best to send to the best or to each customer. The important thing to remember, though, as a dispatcher, we need to be making decisions based on logic and numbers versus emotion and feelings. In dispatch class, we talk a lot about facts over feelings. Facts over feelings. facts over feelings. We repeat it over and over again so that it's driven home, because we cannot have a situation where a dispatcher is making a decision based on emotion, which in turn costs us a lot more than just revenue. So now's as good a time as any to mention that your main job as a dispatcher is to maximize opportunities. That's it. That's the one thought process that should drive every single decision that you make as a dispatcher. You should be asking yourself before every choice you make if you're about to do the thing that will maximize the opportunities that you've been handed for that day. And you do that by combining tools like the ones on the screen, the call matrix and the batting order, and other tools that you have available to you. And if you haven't attended a call center school, you should know that we coach away from the next up dispatch, that first come, first serve mentality. The best tech should always, always, always be running that call that he or she has the best shot at maximizing the opportunities on in serving the customer. It doesn't even matter if it's at the house right next door. It has to be the right tech. Dispatchers, I need you to listen to this next sentence that I'm going to say, because it's a game changer and it's drastically going to impact several areas of your job. Stop shutting down the call center. Stop it. It's not your job. Stop it. So many dispatchers, they focus on clearing the call board. They click all the buttons and they get all the calls off the board, and they think that they did a great job because they ran a bunch of calls, when in reality they may have even lost a ton of revenue because they didn't maximize those opportunities. They do it without recognizing that they can actually generate more revenue by running fewer calls in many scenarios, because you place the calls strategically. So I want you to operate moving forward with the mentality that dispatchers cannot shut down the call board directly or indirectly by subtle comments or under the breath statements, because it happens. So stop doing that. But they cannot shut down the call board. They have to consult with a call center manager or a service manager in order to do so. Now think about it. If you were able to shut down the call board, and you shut it down right when you got to that level of calls that you're comfortable with. And typically that level of calls is 3 or 4 calls a day for each technician. And what happens if you have a 20-year-old water heater that's not giving hot water and you've already shut down the call board? Well, your competition's going to get that, and they're going to install it tonight because that customer isn't going to go without hot water. So you literally just lost out on an opportunity because you shut down the call board. So I really want you to focus on that. Please stop doing that. Now, how many times have you had this play out, where at 8 a.m. you have the perfect days of calls lined up? Like every 2-hour window or 2-hour call time is perfectly aligned, and it looks beautiful, like color coded, just like awesome, like beautiful stuff. You sit back and just revel in your creation. And then at 8:01 everything hits the fan, and it all changes, and life happens to customers, and calls cancel, and calls take longer from texts, and they had to drive longer, or they woke up late, or their kids got sick, or they got sick. Life happens. So until you have the perfect hand on board, you're not allowed to even suggest that the call board be shut down. And in the unlikely event that you have the perfect set of calls, I still want you to check with your call center manager or service manager, not with the CSRs. Because checking with a leader can help double check your line of thinking, and it'll confirm your idea of your thought process. At the end of the day, it's up to the leadership team, not the dispatchers, to shut down the call board. Now, that lends itself to this. But then I'm going to have to reschedule. And rescheduling upsets customers, it upsets techs, it upsets me, and nobody's happy. To which I respond, well, your way of doing things by limiting the number of calls is actually preventing growth and could lead to us going out of business. How's that? Now, that might seem like a ridiculous statement, but so is the alternative, or so is the statement that you may challenge me with by saying it upsets customers. Because at the end of the day, and we talk about this in dispatch class, it isn't that we are rescheduling that is upset or is upsetting to the customer. It's how we reschedule that is upsetting to the customer. And if you give yourself a second to think about other service organizations or other companies that deal with rescheduling in a much more efficient way, they don't have some upset customers. because the customers reschedule themselves. The key to proper dispatching is going to be to remain flexible at all times, and that means all day. And you can't just set it and forget it. I talk to owners and leaders all the time about this, and we discuss what a dispatcher should be doing. And it's not setting it and forgetting it. It's being open all day. It's constantly keeping your eyes out for a better call for each tech. It's evaluating the opportunities that lie in front of you and then adjusting your day to match those opportunities. A dispatcher should be concerned with hitting their daily revenue target. They should be concerned with adjusting their days to allow that greatest opportunity in order to hit that daily revenue target. And that means rescheduling is an absolute. So we talk about that in our dispatch class, but we also have a whole other video on that as well. Many Nexstar members have individuals doing both CSR and dispatcher, and it looks a lot like the young lady on the screen now, where they're just all over the place. And we understand that sometimes that's unavoidable, and that makes sense. But anytime we can, we start to coach toward moving toward having multiple employees, one for each position or something like that. Because these positions are very different. If you have one person doing both, it can create a level of internal conflict that causes problems, because you've got one part of the brain saying, we need to overbook, we need to book. And then you've got the other part saying, yeah, but we're just going to have to reschedule them anyway. And both of those sides do not coincide, and they have conflict, and that causes problems. And it prevents you from providing the best experience to the customer. So the concept of overbooking is a tough one. I can't deny that. But I do want to challenge you as a company, just for this week, just overbook for a couple calls. Just do a couple extra calls a day. And what you're going to find is that after you've overbooked, you'll notice that you're running that extra call because one of your other ones fell through, or Mrs. Jones had to call and reschedule, or Mrs. Smith had to call and cancel because she found it sooner. And imagine what would have happened had you not overbooked. Those 2 or 3 calls would have resulted in you sending a tech home early. And it's all because we didn't plan ahead. Now, I'm not saying that it should be easy to do this, because it isn't, and it won't be. And if you think it is, then awesome, let's talk. But the fact of the matter is if you're sending people home after a call or 2, it is a failure on the part of the call center and dispatch team. I want you to look at yourself in the mirror to see if you're the architect of that failure, because you should be asking if you're the one making it happen. A normal scenario has us sending a tech home early, and then we get frustrated with the CSRs for not filling the call board, which is actually not full because we as a dispatcher didn't allocate the calls correctly, and then we caused some to cancel because we moved others in their place, which led us to sending a tech home early, and then we yell at the CSRs, which causes them to be continually frustrated, and ultimately it results in the strife that we commonly see between the CSRs and dispatch. And it continues. The vicious cycle continues day after day. The thing is, you can make it easy. You can make it a lot easier on yourself and your teammates. You do that by planning ahead, by understanding that the steps that it takes to succeed aren't that complicated. You can actually create an environment where that chaos is limited and your call center actually becomes a more cohesive unit working together. So there's 4 assignments today. The first is going to be to gather everything we need to be a successful dispatcher. That call matrix, any tech rankings. I want you to think about some other stuff that you're going to be needing in order to be successful. Number 2 is get a goal. Ask your management team, what am I shooting for every day? What does success look like? How do I win the day? And that might be in the form of a daily revenue target or a certain number of sold hours, maybe an average ticket. But it needs to be something that your leadership team has determined, because it's important that you have something to measure and something to go for. Number 3 is stop shutting down the call board. I want you to challenge yourself to just consider that. And number 4, track your results. Make sure that you can measure your results. Measure the cancellations and why are the customers canceling. Check your reschedules. The reschedules that I minimized that you thought were a big deal, track them. Find out how many reschedules am I actually seeing and why. You might find that it might make hiring a tech really easy, or justifying hiring a new tech. You know, you might find that you're scheduling or you're booking the calls in a less than efficient manner. Maybe you're booking every call for the day, that day, instead of doing some smart scheduling concepts, which we can analyze and figure that out if we track. I appreciate you taking the time to listen and to watch this video, and there's a lot more where it came from, and as you can tell, we get pretty passionate about this stuff. You know, Tracy and I's contact information is on the screen. You're welcome to email us at any time. Our calendar links are actually up on the screen as well, so you can get on those and actually get right on our calendar for a coaching call as well. And we're happy to help in any way possible, and we look forward to doing so. So let me know what I can do to help. Let Tracy know what we can do to help, and we're happy to do so. Thanks, and make it a great day.